It's time for Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimpson and Kevin Scholla.
Hey, Susan, welcome back.
Thank you, Kevin. Great to be here.
So our pal John Boehner in the news this week for something a little different, a little odd, actually. Tell us what Boehner has suggested.
Well, I thought we'd just have a little fun with this topic this week. It came out in the news that John Boehner was going to be conducting sensitivity training for some male members of Congress.
Yeah. And this is going to help deal with women as Republicans, because that must be the problem, I suppose.
Well, I think even if you look at that sensitivity training, that in and even of itself, I really don't need you to be sensitive with me. I just need you to be aware and fighting for the issues that I care about. I don't need special training for you to go through in order to relate to me, because if you're having to train, then it means it's something that may not naturally be in you. And I want to be fair as well. I do think that Republicans, it's been an effective tool for the Democrats to use against Republican males, but it looks like we're taking the bait on it if we're doing something like this. You know, John Boehner is having sensitivity training for the male members of Congress. I did think that his quote was interesting. He did say, you know, when you look around the Congress, there are a lot more females in the Democratic caucus than there are in the Republican caucus. And, you know, some of our members just aren't as sensitive as they ought to be. Well, I can think of one way, maybe, to help that, and that might be to support more women in running for office so that we have just a natural tendency in there to represent both perspectives.
Yeah, not be scared to share the stage with strong women, too, where we've seen Sarah Palin, of course, have that encountered with her, and then, you know, have people like a Susan Stimpson, like a Sarah Steelman, people who, you know, can come out there. But these guys, you know, unlike Ted Cruz and Rand Paul and Mike Lee, who embrace women like yourself, these guys are always, you know, threatened. So, you know what, you said you don't need to have them be sensitive. I know another thing you look for is a little honesty and a little bit of, you know, saying what you really mean. That's another thing, that if they want to train on something, how about that?
Well, exactly. And one of the ways that I couldn't help but think about this, is it possibly a way, you know, to not have to take some responsibility for maybe some of the ways that you're talking about issues. And so we do what politicians are good at doing. If they don't want to take responsibility for something, they send it to a committee so that it can be studied. I don't think that we need an artificial facade on this. I just think that we need to work toward having a more diverse perspective in the GOP, and that doesn't mean that I want just anyone in the GOP. I do want people in the Republican Congress to fight for a limited government and fight for those foundational principles that our country was, you know, established on. But I just thought we'd have to have a little bit of fun with this, that we're going to do sensitivity training for the male members of Congress.
You know, it speaks to a larger problem, too, Susan, you know, saying it's almost like, well, we need to act a way we aren't, or we need to make people think we feel a certain way. There's this establishment feel of this is how you win elections. So in other words, well, we're going to find, you know, tricks and, you know, gamesmanship to win, but once you're in, you're not going to have the substance anyway. What they need to do is talk about real issues, real solutions, follow the Constitution, and support people who put their necks out there for us, you know, like the ones that we always mention on this program. Instead of saying it's one thing to win an election, but you need to have a qualified, good leader who then comes out on top.
And here's a little hint for you guys. See, women, we kind of see through that. We can tell if you mean what you say. I have a friend who's been involved in politics for a long time, and in fact, he was working with the National Republican Congressional Caucus in 1988, and they did the same training in 1988. I wonder how many of those members are going for the 2.0 training today.
Well, listen, nobody cries more than Boehner, so to say he's not sensitive, Susan, I think that would be a gross mistake.
Well, part of this is I thought we would just have a little bit of fun with the topic because certainly the GOP is taking its lumps. The Democrat Party, they found a good, weapon and tool just to kind of drive that home about the war on women, which we know is a false narrative. But at the same time, the GOP, I think, just needs to respond with authenticity and with truth. And I think we do need to support getting more perspectives at the table. And Boehner admitted himself there are many more females in the Democratic Congress than there are or in the Republican caucus and the Democrat caucus. And maybe that's something that we need to address more seriously. Stop giving it lip service that Republicans support more women in office, and let's start really working toward recruiting strong women, to be in those positions.
If this gains any steam, what's going to be next? He's going to say everybody has to go to tanning beds, too.
Now, Kevin, you're having a little bit of your own fun with this.
Blue, red state. No, we're going to have an orange one. Thank you, Ms. Stimpson.
Thank you.